Chapter 53. When Alter got to the beach, she called out, in a loud, raspy whisper, to Sun Moon. No answer. She raised her voice a little louder, still no response. She decided to sit down and wait, and as soon as she did, a thought occurred to her. Where is the Keelan? Untold ushered the unusual creature into the room where Sun Moon and the Keelan were watching their approach with awe. Each of them were strange, fascinating creatures unto themselves, but seen together it was beyond amazing, and a new word must be invented, or so Sun Moon felt.
This is our new god,
Untold said.
He is wise and powerful.
He looked specifically to the Keelan.
This is our curator, known as Friend, and this one I just met. Her name is Sun Moon. She is a werewolf, a cousin, like me.
Untold bobbed his head as he ended his introductions and motioned for everyone to sit at the table.
I will make drinks. You sit and talk. Get to know each other.
Untold left the room for a moment to get some beverages, and in that time, Sun Moon never left eye contact with the new god.
Do you have a name?
Sun Moon asked tentatively.
Around here, I seem to be known as the new god. Where I am from is as much a mystery to me as it is to you, I imagine. Because I could not remember my name, the mapinguari gave me that one. Now, they seem to be stuck on the idea that my name is God.
Why do they call you New God?
I suppose because I appeared out of the blue.
So did our travelers. We had a phoenix, which is a giant bird that cannot die. We had an air dragon half the size of a small mountain. We had a servitor who can shapeshift. We had a human, somewhat like you, but without wings. And we had what I could only call a mysterious being whose voice was always a choir of voices.
Sun Moon lowered her gaze for the first time.
None of them claimed to be a god, so I'm wondering why the mapinguari call you New God.
You are a werewolf who is obviously bound to nature. I am of an unknown realm, or at least I was, and then, in a single instant, and I do mean single instant, I was here. Not by my volition, not because I did anything. I simply moved from one world to the next.
How long ago?
I believe it has been 3 days. I cannot say for sure.
What was your world like before you came here?
Sun Moon asked. The winged creature paused. His shoulders rose with his deep inhalation, as if he was preparing to deliver a long message.
That is what is so strange. I do not remember.
If you don't remember, how do you know you aren't from this world?
The Keelan asked.
Only because everyone I meet says they have never seen any creature like me.
The Keelan smiled.
I know for a fact you are not from this island, but I cannot speak for the mainland. How you got on this island, and in particular here, underground, with the mapinguari, that I cannot imagine.
Untold said that you want to kill the dragons and be the mapinguari's god. Is that true?
Just at that moment, Untold came back carrying cups and a wooden bowl of some kind of liquid that had a pungent smell. He glanced at God with reverence, nodding with eyes worthy of worship.
I have not met these dragons,
God said.
nor do I understand what it means to be their god. He nodded in the direction of Untold. God is just a name for me, but for them, it seems to be everything. So in this matter, I am equally confused.
We told you.
Untold said.
You are the higher being we would hold as our creator. To you we worship because we know you will protect the thing you create. Yes?
God smiled and looked down at his hands, resting on the limestone table. His wings were draped behind him, and would from time to time move of their own accord like the tail of a cat.
You look at me and make those conclusions, but it is not who I know I am.
Who do you believe you are?
Sun Moon asked.
I am an unknown. Quite possibly, I am completely unknowable. I have no past or lineage or evolutionarily earned insights, what you call instinctual knowledge. I am not part of a collective species that I remember. It is quite possible that I am one thing, apart from everything else. So, in that void of knowledge, I have no choice but to say that what I am is a complete mystery. Nothing more, nothing less.
What about the mission to kill the dragons?
Sun Moon pressed.
I did not come here to kill anyone, as far as I remember, but my friends here seem to think otherwise.
Untold was walking to the table with drinks in hand.
Show them.
He said, with a broad smile on his face. God shook his head.
I do not want to. It feels wrong to parade a skill that I alone possess.
But you showed us.
Untold said.
Only because I did not know what your intentions were when you came toward me. I was still in shock when I first came into this world, and suddenly I had several of you staring at me like I was the strangest thing you had ever seen. I did not know if you would try to kill me, capture me, or harm me for your own pleasure. There was no way to know what your true intention was. So I protected myself.
Untold distributed the drinks and then pointed his long, furry arm to God.
He can lift things. He can lift us. He put us into the air like the wind blowing a leaf. But there is no wind. The new God is powerful, and he is ours.
Are you theirs?
Sun Moon asked.
I am one, and thus no one can own me. I am grateful to the mapinguari for their hospitality. However, I am not a property that they own, despite what they might say. I am still trying to figure my way through this new world that I suddenly find myself in, one that is completely unbidden, at least by me.
Ah, now I understand.
Untold chuckled, sitting down at the table.
You do not realize. We have been praying for you. To come. For many generations we have prayed to you. Sometimes you have listened. Sometimes you have not. But still we pray. This time you listened. You came. And you came because we have a big problem. And they are dragons. It is odd that you don't remember. But as a god, it must be hard to remember all things. I forget things all the time.
Untold took a swing of his beverage.
How do you like it?
Sun Moon suddenly remembered she was 30 and took a long sip, swallowed and almost spit the drink out. It was so sour.
It is very good and very strong.
Sun Moon managed to say with a wince. Untold smiled with a degree of pride, knowing that strangers would find their favorite beverage an acquired taste.
Back to killing 2 dragons of enormous size,
Sun Moon said, already feeling the effects of her beverage. She could sense a separation, as if her mind was drifting away from her body. Something was pulling it away. And as it did this, she felt a new focus on her thoughts. Her body was of no concern to her whatsoever. God shifted in his chair and took a small sip.
Yes, the dragon killing came later. I was told that my hosts were being subjugated by dragons. They were essentially a species under the threat of genocide if they didn't agree to full obedience to the dragons. Even for someone like me who could not even remember their name, that seemed to be unhealthy to secure cooperation and community, though, to be fair, I am still learning about those qualities. Nevertheless, I do not wish to kill anything. If it exists for a reason. Who am I to say that reason to exist has ended? Let everything exist, and in that mutual existence, let everything find its equilibrium, its points of balance.
But what if the only way to find balance is to kill?
Sun Moon said.
The dragons will give birth to more dragons, and these dragons will be more powerful and more dangerous because of their powers. Are you suggesting we accept it? We allow them to exist? We allow them to define the rules that rule over us? Is that what you're saying?
You need a council of the unaligned,
God replied.
All of the creatures that want independence from the dragon's rule, they need to form a council and approach the dragons as a unified voice. If each of you is endeavoring to kill them, you will probably fail and only inflame them and make their cause, in their eyes, more certain and absolute. Isn't this just common sense?
Sun Moon smiled nervously.
Yes, but what makes them listen to this council? They will not change their positions simply because we ask them to.
No, That is probably true. But they know that a council of the unaligned exists, and these voices, if they are not listened to, will need to be destroyed. However, if they destroy them, they cement their victory in descent, and this cannot sustain itself.
He pointed to the staircase.
It is like descending those stairs. I can follow them to the bottom, but that is the only place they go. If they listened to the voices of the unaligned, they could cement their victory in alignment where there are an infinite number of ways to progress, but only one that truly matters, the one that unifies.
Okay,
Sun Moon nodded.
but that requires uncommon leadership, and this is not easy to find. I'm not even sure if it is possible with these dragons.
Look at me.
God said.
Am I a leader? I have been in this world for 3 days. I do not possess a name or a single memory before my arrival. I have some powers, but they are of dubious importance in the grand scheme of this world, of which I know so little. And yet, you are listening to me. And that is because it is common sense, meaning it applies to all worlds, all situations, all problems. It is common. What is common is where unity can be found. Where unity is found, that is where progress, advancement, and expansion occurs. Don't you think that the dragons desire all of that, not only for themselves, but their progeny as well?
There was a long pause at the table as everyone considered God's question.
Yes, but that requires power sharing, and the dragons do not see that as viable. To them, sharing power with the powerless is a waste of time and power.
Not if it grants them more options and a broader expansion of progress and advancement. The power only grows, whereas, if they try to contain it just to themselves, the power will wither and be fraught with the winds of time and the lightning bolts of nature's law of investment.
And what is that?
The Qilin asked.
The law of investment?
Where nature invests its existence is always an experiment.
Said God.
If that experiment creates separation and isolation, then the experiment will give feedback to nature that its future path will ultimately wither and cease to exist. If the experiment creates unity and interconnectedness, it will give feedback to nature that the future path will be one of expansion. It will be a good investment of nature's experimentation resources. This is simple logic. It is applicable to all things. Nature just happens to be all things.
Untold murmured.
You lost me on that one, God.
My point is simple. Collect your voices and take them as the unified voice of the unaligned to your dragons. Explain to them that you have this voice.
And they will kill whoever is the messenger of that voice.
Sun Moon interrupted.
You do understand this, yes?
Perhaps, but they need to understand the logic. And the messenger is conveying the logic of the unified voice that benefits all. Logic is an outgrowth of common sense. Common sense is to the benefit of both the powerful and the powerless. And this is the logic.
But the powerful,
Sun Moon began slowly.
in this case, the royal dragons, believe that their power is superior to everything else. Anything that would stand in the way of their power is an obstacle that must be removed.
Sun Moon stopped talking, her head tilted upward slightly, and her index finger extended very slowly. Everyone remained silent, waiting for her to speak. Sun Moon leveled her eyes on God.
Would you be our leader? Would you meet with the dragons and explain this?
Untold leaned forward, his massive head with the one orbital eye nodded. Sun Moon reached her arms across the table, touching the hands of God.
Please, if you can explain this to them, maybe they will listen to you. You are not like us. They will take one look at you and see that you are something worth listening to. Our ability to get their ears has passed, I'm afraid.
She leaned back, waiting for God's response. His eyes closed momentarily. The colors that pulsed underneath his translucent blue-tinted skin changed like a kaleidoscope twisted by a very careful hand. There was the briefest of nods and then a slight smile. His eyes opened, and for the first time Sun Moon felt that God was actually among them as a concentrated being and not simply a distributed province of nature.